To start off and kick off, we actually have two of the finalists that are going to be sharing with the panel today. So we've got a great little roundtable of experts that have quite a scope of different experiences, multiple startups, multiple phases. And so we'll just dive right in. So hailing from Maitland, serial founder, CEO, multi-time CEO, and he's built a really dynamic team with elite expertise for his latest venture, which is Spot Fitness. Please welcome Adam Benavi.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all.
I feel like we need like walk-on music next time, Ashley. So maybe we can plan that for October. So no, that's great. Yeah, exciting. Adam's going to be presenting with the team next week. So really looking forward to that, all that he's doing as one of the finalists. Next, we have another serial entrepreneur who's exited an event tech company, a ticketing platform, and he's launched an early stage venture fund that's focused on first money in for Central Floridians. He's also the head of new business development for Pete Learning, which is one of the top 10 finalists as well. And that is Spencer Elliott. So please welcome Spencer. Woo. There we go. There we go. Next up, we have a fractional sales leader who has experience with leading sales for both software and professional services. She's sold globally for companies like Microsoft and shifted recently towards early stage advising. She's known for creating the fractional sales engine to provide turnkey sales utility, and is a leader here locally as a part of the Women in Technology. So please welcome Nina Jurowitz.
Hello, thanks everyone.
We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And just a plug for Women in Technology. Nina, is that tonight that the Women in Technology is meeting?
It is. It is. It's at, I think it starts at either 5 or 5:30 at the Central Florida Tech Grove. There's an event on women in cybersecurity.
Excellent. Always excited to support the ecosystem. And then finally, we have a deep tech guru who has had enterprise experience with the likes of Oracle, and then shifted into his career where he helped build sales for a compliance company that streamlined enterprise contracting and efficiencies. And now he's shifted into the CRO role for satellite augmentation, where they extend the life cycle of satellites. Imagine that. So please welcome Stephen Sopko.
Yay.
Well, we're excited to really get started and hear about all of your journeys in terms of go-to-market. And I'd like to give each of you the opportunity to kind of do a quick elevator pitch, maybe share something fun about yourself, and then what stage your current venture is in. So let's get started. Spencer, I'll kick it over to you first.
Awesome. And sorry, what was the second part of that elevator pitch?
Elevator pitch, what your stage is, where you're at in your whole journey, and then if you want to throw in a fun fact, feel free.
Awesome. So yeah, Spencer Elliott, born and raised in Orlando, Florida. I'm super proud of that, and went to UCF and UF for school, and then wanted to start my entrepreneurial journey. Found a few passions of mine and wrote them on a piece of paper. Decided to start a business that was associated with that, and that ended up being ViewStub. ViewStub.com is a ticketing platform meant for pay-per-view events for conferences and sports and concerts. And so we launched that into COVID. We were hybrid before it was cool, before people really knew what Zoom was, unless you were in the startup world. And we had a lot of fun with that. Went through Startup Studio and several other accelerators. And I really loved the ecosystem in Orlando and how it supported my business, but also all of the other startups here. And so really proud of that, and wanting to continue to give back as much as I can. And so Paul mentioned the startup, the startup that we have now, which is Pete.com. And so really excited to work with them and to be a part of this Orlando community as it continues to grow here. And so a fun fact about me, I have 3 kids. I have a 4-month-old who you may hear in the background because he projects throughout the whole house. So there's no way I can avoid that. So. Thanks.
He's the cutest, man. He's the cutest. All right. Well, next up, Nina, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Oh, thanks, Paul. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you, Bob, for inviting me to join. Nina Jurowitz, I'm based in DeLand, Florida, and I have launched, together with a partner who's based in Boca Raton, the fractional sales engine, the fractionalsalesengine.com. And what we have created is a sales utility for any company that is hesitant to hire full-time sales professionals. Hesitant because of previous experiences, hesitant because that's a huge commitment for early stage companies. And so what we've put together is an engine, a utility, if you will, of end-to-end sales process that's executed by experienced sales professionals on a fractional basis. So it is a fractional sales solution, but it's more than a staffing solution where we drop people into the company. What we provide is everything from lead generation through to opportunity development, qualification, and close, all following an established sales methodology, which I can share more with you if you're interested, performed and executed by experienced trained professionals who have already sold for the likes of Google, Microsoft, Oracle, but now are kind of fed up with the corporate grind, and yet aren't ready to go out fully on their own as consultants. We have a virtual network of people like this, and so that's what we've put together. It's especially suited in my for some reason, Zoom is asking me if I'm speaking in Spanish, so I'll just go ahead and cancel that out. And as far as our target market, what we do is especially suited for companies that have completed a pre-seed round or a seed round or even a Series A, and essentially have maxed out on founder-led sales. So for this audience, that's probably what's most relevant. If you've maxed out on founder-led sales, but you're not ready to make that full commitment to your first full-time sales hire, which is a big commitment, and if you get it wrong, it can set you back quite a bit, we provide that bridge. But we also work with more mature companies on new market entries, new product entries, that kind of thing. So a fun fact about me is that my Zoom background is a church in Paris called Saint Nicolas du Chardonnay. And I decided to use this as a background back in the days when I worked at EY, Ernst & Young, and I was on a call with somebody, tech guy, who had as his background the inside of the Millennium Falcon, okay, from Star Wars. And I said, oh, I didn't know that you could put your own background up, right? I mean, I just, click on salesperson, just click on this, join the meeting. I don't care what my background is, whatever. He said, oh yeah, you can put anything up there. And I said, well, I want to put something up that's real. I'm gonna put a real place, not a fictional place. I guess Millennium Falcon is very real for some people though, so I shouldn't speak ill of it. So thanks, good to be here. Good to be here, Paul.
We're glad to have you, and I think what Zoom's really prompting you is, do you have Latin go-to-market sales experience?
Living in Florida, I guess I better have. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Adam, we'll kick it over to you. Tell us a little bit about Spot and what makes it so cool.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. We're building the active lifestyle generator using AI to help people get active by helping them find places to go, things to do, and people to meet across 32 different sports and fitness interests. We launched here in Central Florida, and we built an amazing team around us. Fun fact, I actually met one of my co-founders as a kid doing theater at the JCC in Maitland. So that's actually where we met. It's asking me if I'm speaking in Spanish as well. So,
¿Qué pasa?
Right
but yeah,
¿Qué pasa?
So yeah, I met my co-founder at the age of 10, and he got his chops working in Tel Aviv, in the tech ecosystem out there. And 2 of our founders are in Tel Aviv, and 3 of our other founders are here in Central Florida.
Well, great. We're excited to have you here and hear a little bit more about your journey. And Stephen, what's a fun fact and what's special about making satellites last forever?
Thanks. So first of all, donde está el mute button? So that's just so LinkedIn is cool with it. So thanks everybody. It's good to be here. I exited my startup in January of this year, And after 10 years of doing that startup, and as you all know, when you do a startup, you tend to be very narrowly focused. So I had the opportunity to start volunteering with the UCF Business Incubator as a founder mentor, because my only real ask of, when I left my tech/professional services startup was I want to do something very, very different from that. And so I've had that opportunity, and satellite augmentation is an interesting company. Yep, it's asking me about Spanish as well. But satellite augmentation is an interesting company. They were actually on stage at the early stage venture forum earlier this year. And what it's about is a patented process to attach to satellites in orbit, the 7,000 satellites above us right now, about half of which are dead, and bring them back to life. The company was founded by a group of NASA engineers. And so what I'm doing for them right now is helping them with their go-to-market in deep tech, which probably is a good segue for this because it is very different from go-to-market for just about anything else I've ever worked in. So that's been a great learning experience. And fun fact about me, my background is real. I have had to go pull stuff off the shelves in the past to prove it to people. So, but drop me a line. I'm happy to do that for you. So great to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. And maybe you can kind of roll right into your early stage with the go-to-market on the deep tech, and you've also had your services company with Palisades that you exited be successful. Could you compare or contrast a little bit for us what that initiation was like, and how the differences were between the services and the deep tech space?
Very cool. So with Palisade, I was the co-founder. Both of us are former Oracle vice presidents. And Oracle makes a substantial amount of money each year by auditing their customers. They call up the customer and say, "You're stealing from me, prove me wrong." And so we set up a business to help defend companies going through that. Our first client was being audited, second being audited, third being audited. We thought we were going to be in the negotiation business. What we found out very quickly is we were also in the audit defense business. One of our first major clients was BlackBerry. This gives you a little bit of an idea of how long ago this was. And they had a big Oracle problem and needed somebody to negotiate against Oracle. So our go-to-market was originally very much around professional services. In fact, almost 100% in that direction. Very quickly, we learned we were in what I call a 51-49 company. You're 51% services, 49% tech enabling those services. And so, really pivoting in that first 6 months, we took the go-to-market strategy we had to toss about 80% of it out and then rewrite a big chunk of it. So I think in deep tech, the thing I'm finding is that a lot of the sort of certainties we have in the tech model around, what sort of technology we're using, what are we coding the platform in, what are our customers expecting to buy? My experience now in deep tech, especially in space, has been there are so many different paths to success in this. The underlying technology is completely, I wouldn't say variable, but there are multiple different ways to achieve success. And what you're betting on in space is that the path you're choosing will succeed faster than the other paths that are competing with you. Meaning you're not only competing with companies, you're competing with entire paradigms about how to get to orbit and what you do when you get there. So I think that's been more than anything else, the biggest lesson for me in deep tech is that your risk section when I was in tech would be a few pages long. Your risk section in deep tech can be an entire book. And so that's, you have to not let that discourage you. And when you're in a company with a lot of engineers with government background, one of the things you do as a CRO more than anything else is cheerlead for your own solution inside your company, as people who have a natural risk aversion just tend to lock up. So
Got it. Well, I appreciate that. And I wanted to let people know if there are follow-on questions as we go through, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll look to address, and Bob will help me kind of point those out as we go as well. But just stepping back, Spencer, you've had your go-to-market with your ticketing solution. You've had your go-to-market with currently Pete. I think you actually could do a little bit more of a pitch on Pete there as well as we jump into this. But what was that like first right step? What did that look like as you took Pete Learning to market?
Sure. And definitely want to highlight Pete as, an AI company for corporate training. And we're really trying to work with, the ideal customer profile that we've identified through this process, and that being, any company that's growing fast and does not currently have a training department, or one that has a training department but really needs to scale what they're doing. And so we're really excited about how we've been able to identify who those customers are, through not only trial and error, but also lookalike campaigns. And so if we're backing up a little bit, there's several different types of go-to-market strategy, right? There's, product-led growth, there's enterprise level sales, there's executive sales. And, thinking about all these different approaches, it's important to not only test all of them in the early stages of a company, but then even throughout the later stages of your company, you might need to be doing all of these things. So product-led growth, of course, is someone like ChatGPT, right? And if you think about their company, everyone knows about it, and people are just flooding their website, and they're gonna join no matter what. But then I'm sure that company, OpenAI, is also still, and they think I'm speaking Spanish too, is they probably are also still doing executive level sales. And so in the early days of ViewStub, we weren't sure who our customer was. We thought at first that it was creators, right? And we were really eager to get as many creators from YouTube. We went to a VidCon conference over in California, and we were very adamant about that specific market. What we quickly learned is that most of them didn't have the budget for what we were expecting them to do from a marketing perspective on their side. And then they were really relying on us to help them grow their events and grow their audience. And so we pivoted, and we continued to pivot until we found who we felt was our ideal customer, and that we could replicate very easily. So I was just, want to, advise anybody that's in the early stages of their company and really trying to, figure out who that customer is try to find someone who can spend at least $1 on your product very quickly. And what I see a lot of entrepreneurs making the mistake is they want to either do, trials or, pilots, and that's all fine if you have enough dollars for runway. But as soon as you can prove product market fit, and as soon as you can, get to the no, one of my mentors, Mike Mason, when we first started ViewStub, would say, like, find the no. He would always tell me, find the no. And what that means is you want to try to see if you can get someone to pay $10,000 when you thought they would only pay $1,000, right? And what will happen is they might say yes, right? And so you got to be charging more, right? And so you want to always have a benchmark that's above where you actually feel that you'll land, and until you can get that no, and then you kind of work your way down, because it's a lot easier to go down in price than it is to go up. And the other thing I'll say about that is it's not just about your go-to-market. Like, a lot of people hear that term and they might think it's sales focused solely, but it's really not. From a VC perspective, they're looking at how you're managing your entire business, right? They want to know what your go-to-market strategy is going to be in terms of your cost as well as your revenue, right? So how are you, identifying your customers and then attacking that market from a marketing dollars perspective? So right now with Pete, we're really tweaking our marketing strategy, but that also has to do with how much we're spending on marketing, right? And so our VC partners are looking at, okay, well, what's their profitability going to be from each of these customers, and what is it going to take them in terms of resources to get to the next level, and what's that going to mean for them in the long term? And so it's not solely about, your partners or your distribution channels, but it's also about the entire mix of how everything goes together, right? So I just wanted to kind of lay that landscape, because it's really more than just the one-sided approach of just getting sales, right? Because there's just a whole other side of the equation that's important there.
Right. No, I admire the trial and error and the pivot that it takes to really find that fit, that perfect fit as you grow, Pete. And I know you're getting a lot of traction in different categories. So excited to see where that goes. Adam, we were talking a little bit about this and taking the first right step. You mentioned kind of the cold start dilemma. You want to talk about how you've attacked the cold start with Spot?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are a two-sided network. We got to bring users to businesses, and there need to be enough businesses on the platform to do that. And so we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We looked at what Airbnb has done. We looked at what Uber has done, and we just adapted it for our market. So initially, as we're going out and talking to these different businesses and talking to these users and doing our focus groups, we saw there's three main use cases and pain points that we need to deliver on: helping people find places to go, helping people find things to do, and people to meet. Well, the easiest one to go to market is the places to go, because we can curate that data, we can bring those locations into it, And you don't need thousands and millions of users to do the people to meet functionality. So we really launched with the places to go initially. And that's kind of how we overcame that, because now that we have these businesses on the platform, they can sign up for a free profile. They're helping us bring users in because we're doing certain things like putting a recommend us or a rate us on spot window sticker at their businesses. So their users are now leaving them a 5-star review, and we're getting those users from a diverse mix of different fitness interests, whether it's a pickleball location or it's a CrossFit gym or it's a yoga studio. And so now we have our stickers throughout all these locations, and they're helping us bring in the users. So then when we launch the people to meet functionality, it will really help us get there.
Awesome. No, I love that complexity, because you have the two sides that you have to bring together to really find the full traction, right? And so it takes what's the first right step? What's the first right step? Nina, what's the first right step for you when you're advising customers and as they've got a product, they've got something they want to take to market, but they don't know exactly where to go or how to get started?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate my co-panelists and all of your observations. You can see me sort of nodding my head. I see all of us nodding our heads. So a lot of us really on the same page. Sounds like we've experienced similar things. Stephen, I love your background at Oracle. Yeah. But at Microsoft, that was a significant revenue line item, was the software audit.
I spend a lot of time apologizing for my background at Oracle.
Yeah, but but they're still in the game, in a big way. Their Oracle World is this week, I think. Larry's just turning 80 or something. So, but yeah, so Paul, what I advise, and I'm a little bit different from my co-panelists. I'm not a co-founder and pitching for investment. I'm more during the gold rush, trying to sell the shovels and the buckets to the miners going out to mine for gold. So I'm a little bit different, providing some tools and some guidance and some advisory. So my first comment is very much echoing really what Adam and Spencer are talking about, which is the founding team really is the one that has to do the hard work first. You do not need a VP of sales, maybe ever, but let's leave that to one side. You do not hire a VP of sales too early. And if you want to know what too early is, just look at the calendar, and it's probably still too early. If you do not have, as a founding team, product market fit and an initial ICP nailed, your sales team is just going to suck dollars out of you and suck your management overhead out of your time as well. They're going to turn into time vampires, because managing a sales team is more complex, is a bigger headache than you can really imagine. So I would say really do the hard yards first as founders. Founder-led sales is a thing, and you need to be comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable in selling, and many founders who I've worked with, many founders I've worked with who are technology people, who are software engineers, who are building a product, they want to be in a back room with their hands on keyboards. They do not want to talk to customers. I mean, that's part of the jam. But what I would urge these founders to do is skill up, learn some sales skills, sign up for I'll just throw some things out, for a Sandler training, sign up for medic training, this kind of thing. Get some sales skills. Everybody needs to have some sales skills, but not everybody is a natural salesperson. There is no such thing as a natural salesperson. You do need sales skills. You do need to understand a certain sales methodology. I was once at a large company, where one of my supervisors said, everybody here sells. Everybody here is in sales. Everybody sells. And that's a little bit like saying everybody's a neurosurgeon. Not everybody is going to make their career in sales, but in these kinds of companies, when you're small, just about everybody needs a few sales chops. You need to develop a few instincts. So I would urge people, especially I was urge a founder, and I say people, I mean founders. I would urge founders to skill up on the sales side, skill up on customer-facing customer conversations.
I think that's a great point, and I think there might be a couple of comments. As what do you do if you're a very tech-focused, product-focused founder, because you need to figure out how to get it to market, how to take it there. Adam, you might have an interesting perspective in that team build or that dynamic.
Absolutely. I was going to touch on that. You know, everyone thought we were crazy starting off our startup with 5 founders. They thought it would be too many and they'd be fighting and whatnot. But we built a really strong team of 5 founders, and they're all like ninjas in their own domain, right? We have an amazing marketing guy that has a background in exited in marketing, and we have a product guy who built habit-forming apps for companies like Fox and Comcast. And so we made sure when we build our founding team, we put into place things that will maintain our vision, our long-term vision, and keep people motivated. And we put together a strong team that are all domains experts in different areas. So it saves, you know, costs in the long term, right? Because you're bringing people in now and they're putting in the hours in now. And we built this group together from the beginning.
And then you as the CEO, what do you feel like you're also the chief sales officer? I know you do also have a head of sales as well, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so my background really is I've started a lot of different startups and gone to the point of $5 to $10 million in sales. My background is sales. I mean, I used to work for a phone room when I was 19 years old. So, you know, you got to smile and dial, right? And just go out and knock on doors. So really, sales is key to everything, right? You got to bring in the money. And so we have myself running sales, but we have another guy on our founding team that has a background in sales and runs sales for a company called Guesty, which is an Israeli tech startup that deals with Airbnb platforms and whatnot. So we have a strong team in that regard.
Gotcha. And then Spencer, go for it.
If I can add to that, I mean, even if you are a technical founder, you really do need to have, like Nina was saying, and like Adam was saying, like some sales skills. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a closer. It can mean that you focus on the front end of sales, right? The discovery process. And when you're doing sales, you really want to understand as much about your customer as possible. And this is what we're doing at Pete right now, is we're constantly asking, you know, what are your challenges? What are your problems? What platforms are you using? What other things can we tell you about Pete that's going to help you sell this down the line to the rest of your coworkers? And so it's really in the beginning about understanding their budget process, their seasons, and everything that you can about your customer, so that when you're building your product, you're building it very specifically to match their needs. Because you can go and say, oh, we're going to build the best app. And then you go and you talk to 100 customers and they say, we don't use apps because of the security protocol within our company. We're not allowed to download apps. And you're like, oh, I just spent 6 months and $100,000 building a mobile app, right? And so it's very important, even if you don't want to necessarily be a salesperson, to understand sales and to understand the value of understanding your customers' pain points. And I think that's just really, really key in this. And no matter who you are within the company, sales is important. Whether you're selling yourself for a promotion or you're selling yourself in terms of, you know, hey, like me, you know, be my friend, right? It's your teammates. It's always about sales in some aspect. And especially if you're a leader in the company, you have to sell the vision, right? You have to sell the whole concept, because otherwise you're just building a hobby. And if you can't close revenue, it's not a business. And so that's fine if you have enough, you know, trust money and you want to have a hobby, that's fine. But if you want to raise money or you want to be a sustainable company, it's got to have some type of revenue model. So.
Sure.
Yeah, if I could just I'll just add to that. I love that, Spencer. You don't have to be a closer, but you do have to be good at discovery. If I can just sort of also say quickly, the best salespeople ask good questions and then stop talking. The best engineers know how to come up with the answers.
Yeah.
So those are two skill sets. An engineering mindset is kind of antithetical to a sales mindset. So that's why it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for people who have an engineering background, have made a living as engineers. To, what do you mean I just ask questions and then have other people tell me the answers? No. My job is to provide the answers. Yes, that's right. Usually that is what your job is. But in this 10% of your time, your job is going to be to do discovery. And it's super powerful, even in large companies, when the so-called pre-sales engineer, or every salesperson, has a pre-sales engineer. Super powerful when that pre-sales engineer gets some real sales skills. That person is very powerful, because then the customer, the prospect, actually trusts that pre-sales engineer more than the sleazy salesperson, right? So super powerful. Yeah.
hopefully we're not too sleazy around this this circle here. But Stephen, I sense you might have something to add there.
Yeah, a couple thoughts really coming up. Great conversation. One of the things you can do is appeal to ego with the founders, because the thing that I've always said to founders is nobody has the credibility about your business that you have. So, you're a very powerful voice for talking about it. And to kind of need a chain off of one of your points, while everybody in the company may not be selling, they can sure kill a sale really fast. Case in point, the organizations I used to run at Dell and Oracle were often called the sales prevention unit. So you have to look at legal, you have to look at finance, you have to look at all of the various players in the sales process and get them all aligned. And I completely agree with Palisade. It was Craig, my co-founder, and me doing the sales up until we broke through about, we got our first 7-figure year. Then we started thinking, okay, we're delivering a little bit, selling a little bit, delivering a little bit, selling a little bit. And there's a disease that we used to have in the Air Force called Lieutenant Colonel syndrome, where that's the first rank where you actually looked around for people under you to do stuff almost exclusively. And as VPs in big companies, wow, we had that. I had 280 people working for me. If something came up, my first thought was not to do it. It was to look for somebody else to do it. So when Craig and I were talking about this, both of us VPs at a big company, we kind of challenged ourselves, do it all ourselves for the first 6 months and, learn what we're good at, learn what we're not good at. So when we started bringing on salespeople, we made a gentleman's agreement that every year we would show up at Gartner IT Expo here in Orlando and stand in the booth for 3 days and talk to actual C-level customers. There's nothing like that event for drawing in VP and C-level prospects. And so, we were both intimately involved in all steps of the sales process, even though I was running the company and he was building the credibility in the marketplace. But we both kind of challenged ourselves to stay very deeply buried in the sales process. And, this will be the first Gartner I'm not going to in the Palisade booth in 8 years. And so, it's just really important for the founders to understand that, getting good at this not only helps you launch the business, but you as the founder have the power to kill an enormous sale in 4 years if you don't learn how to do this now. Because the worst thing that can happen is a founder says something wrong in front of a big prospect, and that prospect's out the door because the founder has the credibility.
Yeah. No, capturing the power of the voice of the customer is so pivotal to really finding the fit, finding the right value proposition for the go-to-market. Adam, there are a few that have been as proactive as you in the discovery process. Tell us a little bit about what you took away from your investor approach, how you reached out, what you took away that mattered to them that led to your discovery efforts that you put forth early on.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, like the first 6 months, as we were putting together, we had this idea, right? We didn't spend a single dollar. We just went out, did focus groups, reach out to tons of gyms, fitness businesses, health businesses, spoke to users in all walks of life, people that were very active, people that wanted to get more active, meet people. And we did focus groups, especially amongst a lot of women, because we have 5 founders that are men, right? You want to get a lot of feedback from women and what they think. And we thought about taking this a dating aspect. And a lot of people told us, hey, if it has Messenger in it, it's a dating app. You don't have to call it a dating app, right? Instagram is a dating app. People use it to date, right? Facebook is a dating app. People use it to date, but you don't have to call it a dating app. And that's something that we used to pivot initially and early on. On the other side, we really focus on reaching out to Series A investors, VCs, and finding out what kind of KPIs they would look at. So we kind of worked our exit backwards and worked our way down. And those relationships, we still are in communication with those Series A. And when we approached them, we said, hey, we know we're early on. We just want to get some feedback on what kind of things you guys look for when we get to that stage. And it was a lot easier than a cold outreach, right? Because they were willing to help out and give us feedback and guide us along. And so we kind of built our roadmap that way. We worked backwards. That makes sense.
No, that's awesome. What KPIs were you really focused on, or are you really focused on based upon the guidance that you received from the investors?
Yeah. So when you're looking at the Series A side, they really want to look at those user metrics, right? And the user numbers. But really early on, the investors now want to see revenue, right? They want to see monetization. And also there's a shift that has happened in the last 2 years with that focus. So we built first our B2C unit economics, which was a focus of last year, getting to a point where we hit 40% of what the cost per average is, compared to the industry. And we hit 6 times the industry average when it comes to retention metrics. Once we hit those B2C metrics, then we shifted focus into the B2B side and really started focusing on revenue, which is what we built this year, especially since we were ahead of schedule on our core monetization feature for the app. And so now this year, we're really focusing on revenue and getting to that point. But now that we can show both sides of it, it puts us in a stronger position for scaling and growing.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on what you need to look at, what you feel like you need to measure, and what are the differences amongst the stages, right? Adam, what stage would you kind of classify yourself in right now?
Yeah, right now in a pre-seed.
Pre-seed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now it's really about revenue, showing the B2B side, showing the B2C side, and both sides, because we're our two-sided network. And then really next stage is going to be scaling it. And before we go nationwide, right, really focus on these 10 counties that we're in to overcome network effects and the cold start problem. We really focus on this area. If you look at Central Florida, it's a great launch point. If you look what Tinder does, right, they launch and focus on the universities because they knew those students would be going back to their homes during winter break, summer break, and they would take their app with them. We built it in Central Florida because you have 80 million visitors here. You have everyone coming into town, right? So it's a great launch point, these 10 counties. And that, if you look at the metrics, it actually represents 1/50 of the United States. So if we can build something strong here, we knew it'd be easy to scale it nationwide.
Yeah, I like that bite-sized approach very much. I appreciate that. Some other insights there around measurement or thoughts on that?
I think one thought from me that I caution my clients about a lot is your first customers tend to define you in ways that you really don't often understand. So case in point, I don't think we would have gone after as many Fortune 500s. We have 25% of them. If our first clients hadn't been Fortune 500, if we had been dealing primarily with smaller companies, we would have thought smaller companies. And here in Central Florida, what I see a lot of is government, especially since VCs want to see revenue. The thought is, look, I need non-diluting revenue. So I'm going to go after an SBIR grant. I'm going to do STTR. I'm going to do all these things. One thing just really to remember, and in fact, I coach people to write it in their go-to-market strategy, is what it takes to be successful in government. Again, Nina, to your point, sometimes antithetical to what it takes to be successful with commercial business. So, and government takes a long, long, long time. So I see a lot of companies paused, waiting for government grants, but they're not moving forward anywhere else because they're kind of looking at that to get their revenue. So just as you're figuring out your first customers, just understand that it can influence your sales, your entire sort of operational life cycle. And one other point that I've heard a lot from especially tech founders is, I don't have to listen to customers because, as Henry Ford said, if I'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And really, and Steve Jobs used to say that a lot, but both Ford and Jobs had like paradigm shifting technologies where listening to the customers would have held them back. And I think people really have to ask themselves, when I'm refusing to talk to customers, great, but do you actually have a car versus a horse or an iPhone versus a BlackBerry? I don't think you do. I think that, you don't have a paradigm shifting technology. So you really do need to listen to your customers. Don't listen to Henry Ford.
And understanding your customer's problem really leads to both of those products from both of those founders, right? So they understood that you wanted something faster, right, than necessarily a faster horse. So they did understand, the needs of the marketplace, right? And no one knew what that product or solution was, and that's up to them to come up with that. But I think it was really important to understand overall the need. And so, you mentioned going to the booth, right? And I think that's super important to sit there and actually talk to your customers. And like Nina said, less is certainly more when you're in that situation. You don't want to, I think it's the Sandler training actually that says spilling your candy in the lobby. You don't want to go, and I see a lot of founders do this, and they tell you every single feature about their potential product, and it's not even built yet most of the time. And this is what it's going to do, and this is how it's going to solve this problem, and right? And that's fine. I want to hear those visions, right? I want to hear what your ultimate goal is. But you kind of have to wait to share before you know what their specific, needs are with that customer specifically. So they might tell you that they only care about one thing, right? Okay, well now I don't have to say all the other things that my product does. I could just focus on this one very specific use case that's going to solve their specific problem. And now I've shortened that whole conversation. And now we're talking very specifically about how I can help them with that one thing. And then whenever I do get that one customer, I want to find one just like them, right? And I want to replicate that as many times as possible. And I want to do that as effectively as possible so that my bottom line, and I love that we're all talking about revenue, but also profitability, right? So revenue is important, but at what cost, right? Making sure that we're actually able to support that revenue, because there's companies that do $300 million in revenue and then fold the next year because they're upside down, right? And so we certainly have to, as the market is changing and it's less Silicon Valley-esque, where it's, some people will call it like dumb money, just throwing money at companies and seeing what happens. We certainly want to see a company, like Adam was talking about, have the metrics that will be sustainable for the long term. It's okay to operate at a deficit and operate as a loss leader, but only for a certain period of time. And so when you're talking about your 3 to 5 year goals, that's important. But when you're early stage, it's really like 3 to 5 months. Like, how are you gonna build this model so that it can scale effectively? And with Pete, very specifically, like, we've had to say no to customers. And we're doing that a lot now, is we're saying no because they actually will waste our resources and they actually end up being net income negative for us, right? And so although there's revenue coming in the door, it's less important for us to have that revenue as it is for us to get it right now, so that we're not spending time on the wrong customers and building in the wrong direction for the long term. And so I just, try to lay that frame of reference out for anybody who's in the early stages, because you really can. And we did that a lot at ViewStub. We went in a lot of different directions and we spent a lot of money. I mean, in the tune of like millions of dollars going in different directions. We did figure it out. And then we pivoted and pivoted and pivoted and pivoted, and you're going to continue to pivot. So just be ready for that. And I think, growing fast is important, but also growing slow in the right direction is almost more important. So it's a balance. It's definitely an art. It's not a science, and definitely have to work on it. But we're all here to help. So
yeah, I mean, what you're describing, Spencer, is you don't want to turn into a custom product development shop for a customer. Right. And then, you don't want 80% of your revenue to come from 2 or 3 customers who essentially just use you to build the thing that they want, and they don't want to hire their own team to build it. But that takes some discipline to say no, I would say. And if you don't have a sales team, a sales rep breathing down your throat saying, oh, no, the customer said that you got to build it this way. You got to put a red button on and 2 blue buttons here. You don't have a sales team, it's going to be much easier to say no to those customers, way easier. So.
And you have to say no in such a way that it invites the customer to align with what you want to sell. Because one of the key metrics that I use is how often do we deviate from what is the most profitable product or service for us. So, one of the things, it was funny, at Dell, we used to agree to the customer's definition of terms about 50% of the time, because Dell was, tremendously malleable in that. And then I moved over to a different company that exerted a ton more discipline of here's what we sell, here's exactly what we do. And we have enough background to know that this is the most profitable product for us. So right now, when I'm looking at a startup, what I'm looking at is, do you know which of your products is the most profitable, and how often do you sell exactly that with minimal deviations from it? If that number's high, you're probably going to survive. But, I started my career during the .com era, where it was, we lose money on every sale, but we're going to make it up on volume. You're not. That's not going to happen. So.
No, especially in early stage, right? You need to focus your time, effort, energy. That's what I heard Spencer say. Focus on what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in your time. Bob, were there other comments or questions that chimed in, or did you have something?
No, nobody's asked any questions yet. I was actually going to jump in and say we can keep going with your questions.
Sounds good.
I don't
Sounds
have
good.
anybody else. Okay.
So as you're going through the process and you're really trying to find that product market fit, how do you know you've actually attained it to take the next step in your go-to-market strategy?
Was it?
This can be open to any of the 4 of you. Or was there a time maybe in the growth cycle of a previous company where you're like, this is the light bulb moment. I've finally got this.
I would say, initially we were focusing on, selling these digital marketing packages to these businesses and upselling them on, hey, you can be on our app, you can get more users and whatnot. And we really found out that the businesses really wanted to be able to tie their marketing dollars to revenue coming in. And so we built this core monetization feature in our app, which is called the cost per action model, where we get paid only when a user walks in the door and spends money, kind of like the Groupon model, right? And so we went from businesses not really listening to us to overnight we get like 170 businesses now are signed up that want that model where they don't have to pay anything unless our user walks in the door and spends money. And so it's really about, listening to those businesses and the customers and finding out what is their pain points and then just adapting and building on that. And we've actually launched and got our first user to walk in the door actually 2 months ago after launching that feature a few months back.
Well, I think that the thing that I tend to look for is the compelling event for the customer, because so often what we're selling or what we're offering to customers is in the bottom tier of their concerns, either because they don't know they have a problem or they have so many other problems that the problem you're trying to solve doesn't even move the needle for them. So, as when you're looking at your product market fit, a big question that I'm always going for is, what is the compelling event that forces the customer to sort of reprioritize what they already planned to do based on what you're trying to offer? And, in my case, it might be you get an Oracle audit letter, or, the UAE wants a new satellite sort of repositioning technology. Compelling event for those customers. Then you kind of trace backwards from the opportunities that come up. Because a lot of times, if a customer issues an RFP or an RFI in the business to business or business to government space, that's late in the process for them. They've had to go through all kinds of procurement people, that sort of thing. So their compelling event might be months ago. So I think that when you're trying to figure out how your product addresses the market, figuring out, is there a compelling event that promotes the concern that your offering is trying to solve? But what does that compelling event look like? And then focus your sales around finding that, because trying to promote somebody's concern from a C list item to an A list item is really tough. If they've already self-promoted, you have a much better chance to get your point across.
That's
I
money
think there's-
there.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
I think there's
Spencer.
opportunity to A/B test things along the way. And so a lot of time as a founder, you think it's very linear because you look at maybe what the landscape provides, and you think, okay, well, everyone does a SaaS model, right? Everyone does a subscription-based model, and I think I need to do a subscription-based model. But then after you realize who your customer is, and you realize that they, are more of an enterprise level model, maybe you need to come up with a new pricing structure, right? And then maybe you need to come up with a new channel of distribution to get to that customer. And then maybe you need to make it easier for them to close within their own ecosystem. And so you might have to now pivot 3 different ways on your whole entire business model in order to make that customer seamlessly integrate into your concept, right? And so I know with ViewStub, we had that happen a lot of the time, right? We thought that they would pay something up front, and then we'd go and they'd be like, we don't have any money. We put all of our money into the event, and then we need to make our money back after the event is over, right? And so then we had to align with that, right? So we changed our pricing to be, okay, nothing up front, but we get a percentage of revenue, right? And then so we'd consistently make changes. And I know with future funders, we're going through this right now. I think Kelly dropped, but Kelly Barena on our team, put us through a workshop, right? And we all sat and we walked through, what are the values of the company? What are the kind of like the things that we want to represent? What is our customer looking for? And we walked through all of these things, and now we're going to go test that against the marketplace before we ever really truly start marketing, right? We want to like have these small focus group type things like, does this resonate with you? Is this actually what is going to make sense for you as an investor? Because what we thought to be true might not be true. And so right now we don't have a management fee, right? We're like, oh, that's huge benefit. And as we're talking to some investors, they're like, no, I want you to have skin in the game. Okay, well, now we're like, okay, we might need to retool this, right? Because they might want us to have a management fee, even though we thought that was a huge benefit. And so, do we have non-accredited investors? Some groups might not want non-accredited investors. And so we're now having to like make sure that what we thought to be true is actually true. And I still do want to push those things forward, but I need to understand if that's true in the marketplace. So we'll continuously pivot and continuously be ready to adapt. But at some point, we need to draw a line in the sand, and I think that's important as well, because you can get stuck in always evolving, right? And I think Stephen made a good point about that. Is like, you want to eventually, stick to your guns, right? And not be like, okay, well, we're gonna change, with every change of the wind. It's got to be at some point, this is who we are, and this is what we're gonna do, and be disciplined. So.
Awesome. And just with 30 seconds, Adam, do you have any other takeaways in go-to-market thoughts that we should remember from you?
Yeah, just always talk to your customers, always go talk to people about it, knock on doors, make phone calls, reach out to everyone, right? Just keep talking, keep getting feedback, and keep identifying the pain point. Yeah,
that power of the voice of the customer to align with the values, like Spencer was talking about. How do you align with the buyer preferences and the values? Nina, any final thoughts there?
For founders, if you don't know how to sell and you've never sold, get some training.
Got to be the chief sales officer, right? Stephen, any final takeaways there?
I think we made a point earlier, all of us, about selling past the close. If you don't know about that concept, definitely go look it up, because I think the point was really well made that we have a tendency to get excited about what we're doing and over provide information. And so often the point you make that the customer really gets excited about is countered by the next thing you say that really alienates the customer. So just understand your customer first, and then hone your message down to the bare minimum.
Nina, it looks like you have a tag on.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say know when to stop talking.
Gotcha.
Were you going to say that to me, or were you going to say that as advice in general?
As a concept. And again, I get back to that's generally can be very hard for engineers who have been trained to provide answers. That's what you've been trained for your whole life, all through your schooling, provide answers. You have to know when to zip it. You got to have somebody come over and yank you out of the meeting room, but know when to stop talking.
And Spencer?
My thought process on go-to-market strategy is really just that everything has to be aligned, from your brand identity to your team core values, to the actual product, and to your sales strategy, and then to the P&Ls, right? So try to come up with an entire cohesive strategy. And this is really important when you're pitching and when you're trying to raise money specifically, but also to your customer, because they're not just looking at your product, right? They're looking at, do I align with this brand? And it's more than you believe that actually happens, right? So there could be two competing products that are exactly the same from a utilities perspective, but they're going to pick one or the other because they might align with that brand a little bit more, and the vision that founder has. Or I saw like a jam the other day that everyone's supporting because the family that produces the jam housed some families during the Holocaust. And so it dates all the way back to that. But that's like their cult following. Everyone wants to purchase this jam because of the meaning behind the founding team. And so it's just jam, right? It's just jellies, right? But there's a story there. And so you have to think about that in your entire story, and how you can align everything that you're doing into your go-to-market strategy, because it's very important. So it's not just, how do I close this deal? How do I get the next customer? But how do I represent the brand in a very specific way that maybe you will have people coming to you in an organic fashion like that, and that's more product-led growth. But you can do multiple different strategies at once. So, in the early days, we talked a lot about how to get your initial customers and how to replicate that. But later on, you might have to, imply multiple different strategies. It might be that you're doing product-led growth, and you're doing enterprise-level growth, and you're doing a direct sales strategy. And then maybe just, branding and awareness at the same time. And so it's okay to do multiple things. And I think it's important to be able to balance all of those things, because some of them, might hit capacity, or they might have different scaling limitations. So just kind of, thinking about that from a holistic perspective.
Well, if there's one thing that's consistent, right, there's always the need to be nimble and to be able to pivot, right? As you understand the problem more, as you understand the brand relativity more, as you understand where those compelling events are, and you understand where those no's are, right? And if we can do that, we can certainly build a successful go-to-market. But I thank you all for the time. I thank you very much to the panel. Applaud the panel for all their expertise and the insights from sharing those experiences with us. so we can kind of avoid some of those pitfalls and build together. And then just excited about next week. So the Startup World Cup, and then we'll be back here on the tenX Talks on October
October
8th,
8th.
I believe. That's the second Tuesday of October. So we're excited for that. And thank you very much for spending your time this morning with us.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.